The sky over the Persian Gulf was unusually quiet that morning, yet satellites and surveillance drones revealed a storm brewing beneath the surface. The world was watching. From newsrooms in Washington, D.C. to in Berlin, people were glued to their screens. President Donald Trump had just finished a closed-door meeting with top Pentagon officials. Sources leaked that the U.S. was on the brink of launching a limited airstrike on Iranian military infrastructure. The justification: a series of missile threats reportedly directed at American bases in Iraq and Israel. For some, it was a strategic move. For others, it was the start of something irreversible. On Twitter, hashtags like hashtag WWIII and hashtag Iran Strike were trending. The atmosphere was tense, uncertain, and charged with fear. But this wasn't just a military situation, it was a cultural one, a media storm that would sweep across continents. In Europe, reactions were immediate. France called for an emergency session at the United Nations. Germany issued a travel warning for the Middle East. Protests began erupting in London, Brussels, and Prague. The tone was clear. We do not want another war. Meanwhile, back in the U.S., a very different front was forming, one powered not by military assets, but by microphones, smartphones, and social influence. It began with a tweet from Taylor Swift. "The world doesn't need more bombs. It needs more empathy to stop this madness." Moments later, Beyoncé posted an Instagram video calling for peace, wearing a simple white t-shirt that read, "Voices over violence." Her message reached over 200 million followers within an hour. Within 24 hours, a digital movement had taken shape. Activists, celebrities, and everyday people were speaking out not just against war, but against the system that seemed to prioritize destruction over diplomacy. The voice of the younger generation, long dismissed as too online, was now too loud to ignore. At the center of this wave was Selena Gomez, who had just returned from a humanitarian trip to southern Europe, where she'd visited refugee camps along the Mediterranean. Her emotional video message, filmed with a shaky phone camera, hit home for millions. "You can't see what I've seen and think war is the answer." Across the Atlantic, in Berlin, a different kind of leader was rising. Lix Kansani, 21-year-old transgender model and Gen Z icon who had recently gone viral for calling out corporate hypocrisy during the Cannes Film Festival. She spoke not with military might, but with cultural force, saying, "This isn't just about oil or borders. This is about values, about what kind of future we want." While presidents and generals were calculating risks in bunkers and war rooms, a parallel war of influence was spreading online faster, louder, and more unpredictable than anything the world had seen before. And then there was Europe, fractured but alert. The Czech Republic was in the middle of a tense election cycle. Populist leader Andrej Babis was campaigning on an anti-American nationalist agenda. His rhetoric echoed that of Trump himself, blunt, aggressive, and fear-driven. It found fertile ground in a public tired of economic hardship and political indecision. But not everyone was buying into the fear. A group of artists, musicians, and activists began organizing what would become the largest peace concert in Europe since Live Aid. The location, Berlin. The goal: to give voice to resistance, not through weapons, but through music, art, and global unity. As the pieces moved across this global chessboard, one question loomed large. Would the voices of culture and compassion be strong enough to stop the machinery of war? This is the story of a moment in time when pop stars stood beside protesters, when tweets became political statements, and when the world paused at the edge of chaos to listen, not to missiles, but to music. The tweet storm that began with Taylor Swift had grown into a digital uprising. Within hours, millions were reposting, sharing, and reshaping messages of peace, accountability, and resistance. But this wasn't just celebrity virtue signaling, it was coordinated, deliberate, and fierce. Taylor Swift, known for avoiding politics earlier in her career, had now become a leading voice in this movement. After her first tweet went viral, she followed up with a personal video message. "We've reached a point where silence equals complicity. I can sing about love and resilience, if I am not willing to defend peace when it matters most." She ended her video with a somber piano melody, a stripped-down rendition of her song, The Archer, playing over black and white footage of bombed-out cities and displaced families. The video received over 75 million views in 24 hours. Meanwhile, Beyoncé took things further. She held a surprise press conference in Los Angeles, standing beside war veterans, human rights activists, and young climate organizers. Wearing no makeup, dressed in black, she addressed the cameras with calm but undeniable strength. "We have voices, and we're done being quiet." She announced a donation of $10 million through her Baygood Foundation to fund peace journalism, refugee aid, and grassroots diplomacy efforts. Selena Gomez used her global Instagram presence, over 400 million followers, as a platform to publish behind-the-scenes footage from refugee camps in Italy and Greece. Her message was clear. War isn't just politics, it's people. It's kids sleeping in tents, families who've already lost everything. "I'm begging world leaders to choose humanity over power." And then came Alex Consani. Fresh from gracing the covers of fashion magazines and storming the runway at Paris Fashion Week, Alex was perhaps the most unexpected voice in this movement. But her influence, especially among Gen Z, was undeniable. She posted a TikTok monologue that went viral across all platforms. They say, "We're too sensitive, too emotional, that we care about the wrong things." But maybe that's what this world needs right now. Sensitivity, empathy. Maybe it's not weakness. Maybe it's our strength. Clips from her monologue were stitched with footage from global protests, drone shots of military ships, and tearful refugee interviews. It became a kind of anthem one. The younger generation began sharing with the tag, #SoftPowerStrong, across digital borders. Young people in Europe, Latin America, and Asia began echoing the same sentiment. The conflict between Iran and Israel might have started in military terms, but now it was spreading through screens, streaming services, and Spotify playlists. In New York, Billie Eilish hosted an emergency benefit live stream titled Echoes of Peace. Within the first hour, over 12 million people joined. She sang a haunting acoustic version of When the Party's Over, dedicating it to all the lives lost in wars we didn't vote for. Artists began aligning with activists, and influencers joined policy discussions. News outlets were forced to cover not just missiles and warplanes, but also poems, paintings, and viral videos. A new kind of coverage emerged, a collision of pop culture and geopolitics. And this cultural explosion wasn't limited to the US and Paris. Fashion designer Virgil released a line of protestwear featuring peace symbols blended with Arabic calligraphy. In Rome, street artist Luca Valenti painted a mural of Beyoncé shielding a war-torn child with her microphone like a shield. In Amsterdam, DJ Femps9 remixed war speeches and celebrity pleas into an EDM track that topped European charts in 3 days. It was titled, "No War, Just Bass." But not everyone supported the movement. Conservative pundits in America ridiculed the celebrities, calling them unqualified pop stars, pretending to be diplomats. News networks framed their actions as out-of-touch Hollywood activism. The White House remained silent on the issue, but sources revealed increasing tension within the administration. Trump, reportedly furious with the media coverage, called the celebrities clowns and glitter. But the ridicule only made the movement stronger. It's because now, it wasn't just stars and influencers. It was teachers, nurses, tech workers, and students. From TikTok dances choreographed to protest beats to college campuses holding teach-ins about Middle East history, a cultural groundswell was forming. And with every repost, duet, or remix, one message kept rising. If you won't listen to our leaders, listen to our music. Listen to our hearts. As the possibility of war loomed closer, the world's cultural voices were becoming impossible to ignore. Not just because of their reach, but because of their authenticity. This was no longer just a battle between countries. It was a battle for the soul of an entire generation. Turning point and aftermath. When culture speaks louder than war, as dawn broke over Washington, D.C., the world held its breath. After days of military buildups, viral protests, and cultural resistance echoing across continents, President Trump walked into the press briefing room, flanked not by generals but by silence. He read a short, unexpected statement. "We are choosing strategic patience. There will be no immediate military action against Iran. For now, diplomacy will lead." There were no cheers in the room, only stunned quiet. For a moment, the machinery of war slowed not, because of treaties or ultimatums, but because the people demanded it. And not just any people. It was Taylor's tweet. Beyoncé's call for empathy. Selena's tears. Alex's fearless defiance. It was the art, the music, the dance, the human stories. It was culture, the kind often dismissed as entertainment, that had become the world's conscience. Across Berlin, sirens of celebration rang out. In Paris, protesters lit candles instead of fires. In Prague, even the supporters of populist candidate André Babs paused to watch footage of a Berlin concert live-streamed across Europa, a moment of unity. Rare and undeniable. Iran remained defiant. Israel remained on alert. The risk of future conflict still loomed large. But what had changed permanently was who got to shape the global narrative. No longer could governments assume their decisions happened behind closed doors. No longer could war be waged without songs written in protest, videos viewed by millions, and voices too loud to silence. Culture had become resistance. And in resistance, it had found new power. In the days that followed, the Berlin Peace Concert became a symbol streamed by over 150 million people globally. Celebrities who once feared taking a political stance now felt emboldened. Young people who once thought their voices didn't matter now knew the truth. Art had stopped a war, if only temporarily. But perhaps that was enough to change the future, because sometimes all it takes is a pause, breath, a beat between the drums of war. And in that silence, the world hears something different. Hope.